Sinivusele sinamukela ehlelweni Kusile breakfast show nalomhla ekseni kungu lesibili kusele nje insuku letimfica kuphela ukuthi siyephethe inyanga yakholwane kanti ke insuku kuyo lenyanga lenati ngemashumi lamabili nakubili lomhla ke ehlelweni unebuso leobutayele lapha ekhaya Eswatini TV encenye hayi kakhulu kunalo uhlelo nalo kodwa ke sidabe sibambe naye nje masombuka indzaba yakusile lomhla ekseni encenye nemalanga lamanye landzelako. It's an honor indeed to have him on the show and utasibambisa siyathemba ukuthi nanani ke niyamthokotela Masombuka Kusile.
Good morning. Top of the morning. Lesibili njengoba sawushito sanibonga ngcomane. Sizabe sibuka nje tindzaba namhla both languages Siswati nesingisi. Sasibuka nje lethamba phambili kakhulu kati indzaba yaseParliamentary nendzaba yama-deportees and the Honorable Prime Minister was answering on some of the questions that the MPs had with regards to security and many issues surrounding that in sports as well.
Speaking of what we'll be doing on the show, we do have some couple of interviews today. In fact, two of them. The first one is coming straight from the Japan Expo. You will remember that the Japan Expo started on the 13th of April, 2025, and the run will be consistent until October 13. Now, Eswatini is there. It has been strategically placed. It has its own pavilion. A lot of cross-pollination of information there, but also exhibiting what we have in Eswatini that surely will attract some investment as well as some tourism from the many millions and millions of people that are there in Japan and hundreds of countries that are there. Hopefully we are able to forge some investment partnerships for private capital in Eswatini, but also we're also able to bring in those people that want to come and experience the beauty of the Kingdom of Eswatini. We'll speak to the pavilion manager Simpiwe Ndendesa, who is there with the team, but also we also have a homegrown economic boost in the Kingdom of Eswatini. You will remember yesterday we woke up to headlines from the African Development Bank, which has funded the Kingdom of Eswatini with a lot of money, 841.7 million emalangeni. That is the loan from the AFDB. Now, the promise is there will be more than 5,000 jobs for our youth in Eswatini. We want to, drill into that with our economist, Sanele Sbia, and really try to understand whether that is feasible or not, or we are stretching ourselves too much with these loans, or it makes sense. You will remember that just a couple of weeks ago, His Majesty did commend the Kingdom of Eswatini for, putting a good picture of itself with regards to being able to pay loans. And so perhaps there's no reason for us to worry about loans, but let's look at the bigger picture. So our expert economist, Sanele Sbia, is going to join us to unpack the real world stakes behind the numbers. And we're also going to explore what this funding means for everyday Emaswati and whether it signals a lasting economic pivot or merely a temporary cushion. That is the agenda this morning. Thank you so much for staying with us. It's 3 minutes after 6. Masombuka sitawubuka lihloko lethambe emili emaphephandabeni elive.
Right, on our paper run today on the Eswatini Observer, making headlines today, this morning, and I'm saying tonight because shock as senior police shoots himself dead. The officer who doubles as pastor allegedly used a service gun to take his life was found lying in a pool of blood at police camp. Now, the colleagues claim he was responsible for issuing guns. NATCOM says he was trustworthy, while Reposa blames non-implementation of Phase 2. And another one making headlines, please, the health crisis as it deepens. There's an outcry that says, please airlift stock ministry to suppliers. Now, MPs demand proof of U.S. deportation agreement. And making the headlines today on the Eswatini Observer, as well as 27 million for Buhleni police station touch-ups.
And we look at the back end of this publication, Eswatini Observer Sports, the top story, in or out of 2025-2026 season squad, the SA camp for securing contracts. Part of this story is these headlines. 4 months in star mega among 34 players on board to Peter Maritzburg. while Highlanders patrons apologized to players for past season hardships, and the recent changes in club leadership was influenced by players' welfare concerns. Other stories speak to Samba Jive, who is going to Denver as player coach, while the Shisaroni-based outfit in Singizini is to play 3 SA sides in 5 days in preparation for the Trade Fair Cup in the upcoming season, of course, while the Eswatini chess has been featured on American publication.
That's right. On the Times of Eswatini today, Home Affairs launches investigation as a crime boss, Kat Matlala, allegedly holds Eswatini ID. Now listed as Vusumuzi Dlamini of Mochane in civil registry. He is not my son. I lost my ID in 2024, alleged mother. The ministry said digitalization efforts sabotaged from within and externally. NTMA, nature not taking over health. Those are the words of the Honorable Prime Minister. ISICOM warns of new hacking scam. Now, senior cops shoots and kills himself. That is the Times of Eswatini today. And as well, making headlines is Mkulu nabbed with over 300,000 dacha.
Look at the back end of this publication, the Times of Eswatini Sports. In traveling bull pre-season squad, Tando, Mega in Mopina, out.
Yeah.
Sorry, this speaks to Tando and Mega, who are in, and Mopina, who is out.
Yeah.
Over 30 players leave for month-long camp in South Africa, and legend Barnes makes a surprise return as he leads team. Another story speaks to Zakele, who mediates in Luka Saga. While in the Women AFCON semi-final, Nigeria and South Africa promise us a thriller. The last story, international sponsor link for Wesleyans. Then we go over to the Eswatini Daily News.
Right, the Eswatini Daily News headlines, the UNFPA steps up for Vlamasango learners and donates 400 dignity packs. The Prime Minister has been appointed president for the GCPR. MPs call for unity, respect in cabinet for Eswatini progress.
Yeah, that's it. And we look at the back end of this Eswatini Daily News publication. The top stories in the sports side. Legends, Pumuza, Barnes lead bull to SA. Both former players Sifiso Barnes Mkulisi and Pumuza El Khatib Jangase returned to the dugout in the takeover by new president South African businesswoman Shoni Mkhize. Another story, Samba Jive is back at Sundowns, and facing SA Duo will be one of his biggest challenges. That's it. Those are our leading headlines this morning. Right. Elive. See, that was the right market test. We are not in the food test.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Ifika imizuzu ishayile insimbi yesithupha sekuvusela mbukele sikwamukele kunathe tindzaba telusuku tekucala kulo luhlelo Kusile breakfast show tithula umsathu tithwamela phambili Eswatini TV sibuka semaswati lami libito ngisaniphoye ngakangcongwane asingene kito tindzaba umhlonishwa uNdvunankhulu Russell Dlamini uthi uhulumende ngelitiko letemafa uyayisebenta indzaba yenhlala kahle emaphoyisa kanzi ke neluhlaka lwakhe uhulumende le grand plan selilungele ke kwethulwa eParliament umhlonishwa uNdvunankhulu bekakhuluma eParliament ngemsombuluko ngesikhathi ke ethula umbiko ukuthi leli hovisi lisebenza njani kulesigaba sekuqala seminyaka imali wahulumende wa 2025-2026.
Umhlonishwa Ndvunankhulu Russell Dlamini ngemsombuluko utfulele ikomiti elibuke kusebenza kwalelo hovisi endlini yabaye esikhulu leliholwa lilunga leParliament lenkundla semthongwaneni umhlonishwa nathi hlophe njengasihlalo kuthi leli hovisi lisebenzise njani imali kuleminyaka imali wahulumende wa 2025-2026 kuso sigaba sekuqala lamalunga ke bese yatsingitsa wona umbiko wayo umhlonishwa Ndvunankhulu
ukhetho njengopresident ku-Global Council for Political Renewal siyabongela mhlonishwa sibonge kakhulu futhi shothi livela ngwane livela kahle ngaphandle umsebenzi nawenza eParliament siyawuthobisa kakhulu le insurance ama-personal medical aid ngiva ngathi sisebenze emuva kakhulu nakakafanele ngabe siyikhuluma namanje
siyayicela i-welfare yamaphoyisa ukuthi basaphotheke phinde babe ne-medical aid la maphoyisa enkulukhulu sesihlalweni labantu abanama-uniform abana-medical aid kude nje lutho they are just stressed bedeke nale mali konke njengawo onke ama-civil servants
ngabe vele ka-cabinet hlonishwa Ndvunankhulu nisebenza collective ngiyevana yena ikhibo lebuhlungu uthi mhlawumbe uma usemsebenzini ukhuluma ne-cabinet bona mhlawumbe lo muntu wasecabinet ajikela lula lanayo le-cabinet
akujabulela silivele emaswati sinakujabulela futhi siyiParliament uyibona le collectivity in your working nisasebenza njenge-executive yelive
umhlonishwa Ndvunankhulu kubuyele naletinye timpendulo khona endlini
i-grand plan bekumele yenziwe ngemaswati ababa seyiphelile it's ready sifisa ukuthi le grand plan aseyiphumile sihlalela kuyo sinamathelela kuyo ngoba lokwenta umehluko entuthukweni lelive sinasenze plan lihlalela kulo le-implement police housing siyayisebenza lenzaba sekushoda ngetimali ngempela so sifumile indvuna etemafa ngokuthi ayifune tona timali tekulungisa tindlu temaphoyisa kungasito tona todwa so manje-ke ibe seseyisalela emuva lenzaba leyo so lo siyayilandelela with the Ministry of Finance.
umhlonishwa Ndvunankhulu ubheka ukuthi atfulele ikomiti lehloniphekile timphendvulo letibhaliwe ngalolu langa lesibili emini lobikako nguSamkelisiwe Khoza naSimuva Shongwe eParliament.
Ikomiti lelibuke kusebenza kwelo hovisi laNdvunankhulu endlini yabaye esikhulu lithi uhulumende asekacacisele live ukuthi letiboshwa telive lemelika letilapha eveni live litawuzuzani nekuthi ke kufikwe njani kulesinqumo lamalunga bekakhuluma eParliament kulandzeleka ukuthi umhlonishwa Ndvunankhulu Russell Dlamini ethulele leli komiti ukuthi lelo hovisi lisebenza njani kulesigaba sekuqala seminyaka imali wahulumende wa 2025-2026.
Ekubeni umhlonishwa Ndvunankhulu Russell Dlamini etfulele ikomiti lelibuke kusebenza kwelovisi lakhe endlini yabaye esikhulu umbiko ukuthi leli tiko lisebenzise njani imali kulesigaba sekuqala seminyaka imali wahulumende wa 2025-2026 lamalunga lahloniphekile alo leli komiti athandze kwadi kuyo umhlonishwa Ndvunankhulu ukuthi engabe live laseSwatini yini lelitayizuza futhi live liphephile yini ikakhulukati wona emaswati kudo tiboshwa letichamuka khona eveni lemelika letigcinwe lapha eveni letisihlanu
lelive lelikhulu letsa labantu lakha ewamisa ku kuthiwa lakha tivumelwano nalelo live letawumikisa khona nabantu labangasibo balelo live labalimikisa kulo nama third party deportees siphile sakangwane isivumelwano nelive lemelika live lemaswati angumholo wahulumeni bathi tena bafika labantu la bavumelene ukuthi 1 2 sitawukenani ngalokufika kwalabantu laba kunema possible
ndizizwe ngabe siwendile mhlawumbe simise iyothola i-scholarship noma kuthola imisebenzi noma sikhulisa ikhotha yethu ya-AGOA lokuthi sinenyalo sisayine ini ne-America
Kune-agreement kukhona into kokuthi nama-terrorists bangawaletha la kaNgwane, Mr. Chairman. Letimali, Mr. Chairman, is it true yini, Mr. Chairman, lokuthi u-exchange letimali letesabekile la kule deal?
I believe municipalities the challenge la devotion template lapha mathapha nawe mathapha. That is what I believe in.
Ngifuna nje ukuhlola ukuthi kuleyo agreement asinothikanza nje siyabathi akusiko imfihlo bhekana lesibonile of late emkhathini welive lelibomakhelwane bethu nayo iAmerica. Kuthi ungabe laba labagxute lesiphila ngabo mihla yonke akusinothikhanza yini sisilimala kuletinye tinzalo.
Umhlonishwa Mvunankulu ngaye sihlalo waleli komiti umhlonishwa Nathi Hlophe ubeze uyacela ukuthi alethe impendulo edibhaliwe ngaso standing order 81 sako kusebenza kwayo indlu yabaye esikhulu. Umhlonishwa Mvunankulu ke lenzaba akayiphenduli khona endlini yabaye esikhulu kubheke ukuthi alethe donathi impendulo edibhaliwe ngayo lenzaba ngalo langa lesibili. Lobikako nguSamkelisiwe Khoza naSimuva Shongwe eParliamentary.
Lephinland Mvunankulu impunga thulisele dladla lithi litaba yaliwende umsebenzi nalingahlala ehhovisi lengabuki tidzingo tesive ngaphandle. Lephinland Mvunankulu belikhuluma eNgwene nalivula ke tindlu letintsathu letakhelwe abantu labadzala ngaphansi kwenkundla yaseNgwene.
Lephinland Mvunankulu impunga thulidladla livakashele inkundla yaseNgwene lapho licala ngokubuka imakethe lecutsha bomake bakhona eNgwene. Labo make ke banenhlangano kanike balima tilimo letehlukene bese ke bayathengisa. Le nhlangano yabo ke seyineminyaka ikhona kanjalo ke nemakethe yabo solo ke baseseyibambile. Lephinland Mvunankulu ke libakhuthaza ukuthi abaqhubeke basebente ngokutimisela ngoba netinintengo titawugcina tibasekela ngalokuphelele. Lephinland Mvunankulu ke lisuke lapho layovula tindlu letintsathu letakhelwe abantu labadzala khona eNgwene lebese baphila ngaphansi kwesimo lesitsabukisako. Lephinland Mvunankulu ke lithi belingabe alendo umsebenzi longiwo lelingahlala ehhovisi nje sibe sive sitsinga lusito ngaphandle.
Besingayi kumikisa lekubantfu letindvu labakhala ngato. Bebe kanzi simikisa lekubantfu siphume emahhovisini siyele kubantfu ngabe lokukhala lapha esibayeni akusiko lokungaka. Asiphumi ke ngokuthi kumbe sikhuthele yini. Lo msebenzi lesiniko wona uthi ngeke vele uhlale ehhovisi impela ngabe imhlolo. Uma uhlele ehhovisi Dosi mase kubiyelwa lesibayeni kukhanzeke ukuthi lokho lokwasho ingwenyama asikakwendi. Ngibani kambe lesimentela phasi ngiyo.
Labanye ke labakhelwe letindlu babonge kakhulu ngesipho seluphahla.
Dala endlini le yelidzaka nakufika letimvula tifike letimvula tifike tihilite lendlu ngiphinze ngicalele phasi ngakhe kanti nginebantwana sidosa kalukhuni kunethwe timphahla kunethwe namabhuku abo esikolweni.
Ngiyabonga mama ulusito lolungaka leningentele lona Nkosi yami. Bengingaboni ukuthi nami ngoba ngimuntu kodwa lamhla sengiyadibona ukuthi nibatukulu bami ngawukhona kubhaqa.
Kwakhelwa labantu labadzala kungeta kulabanengi leseveleke bakhelwe tindlu kanti-ke kuyachubeka kubukwa labo labanesidingo sekwakhelwa tona tindlu eveni. Lobikako ngugiyani Msibi nginabheka imazibuko eNgwene.
Timpunga seticele indvuna yetemafa umhlonishwa no-Reckenberg ukuthi sekayohlola phenye indzaba yekuniketwa kwemathenda nokugcineke kunoma-ke kubambelela imisebenzi yentuthuko yelive. Letimpunga betikhuluma ngesikhatsi timpunga tichubeka nemsebenzi wendlu ngemsombuluko.
Lithi nathi chubeka nemsebenzi wendlu elisuku impunga ngemsombuluko. Impunga Isaac Magagula esekelwe impunga Sicelo Dlamini usukumise shukumise endlini wacela indvuna yetemafa umhlonishwa no-Reckenberg ukuthi sekayohlola phenye indzaba yekuniketwa nekutfolwa kwemathenda kuthi kude yini inkhohlakalo.
Wona structures la khona harmonized kanjani ngoba kukhona Eswatini Public Procurement Regulatory Authority. Bese kuba khona lenye lesikhuluma i-tender board.
Base banike umsebenzi bantu vele aqhaqhe la ka procurement lo ukuthi wena wekunene nangabe usichargeile nangu 1 billion wemgwaqo. Sicela ukuthi vele laba badozi lo msebenzi sicela uphele ngaleyo mali lesachajana yona.
Timphunga tibe setiba nemankhonyana kulendzaba.
Itiko laka finance lisembisile ukuthi cha liyawubuketa ngomthetho kufuneka ukuthi itiko indvuna isinikete umbiko lofaka naloko lokuthi sebakhashana kangakanani ukuthi lo mthetho ufike eParliament.
Lendzaba lena ikhalisa laba supply yabo kahulumende iphindze ikhalise nesive sonke nje ukuthi kunemsebenzi lecalwako bekweke ukuthi live litawutfutfuka nakuphela nje letakhiwo kube nenjabulo lenkulu kodwa kukhanze ukuthi sekuyadvonsa
lana lo muntu nakanikiwe lo msebenzi ukuthi la ithenda soyitholile uthi ke esekhonda lapha kube sekuphela leti mali angathi ke siphela kulo muntu yini noma kuba nguhulumende longabhadali lo muntu bese kuba nalenkinga.
Indvuna yetemafa umhlonishwa neReckenback unikete timphendvulo.
And so that's a commitment that we can make. As I said, there's legislation for this. Like I said, is being worked on as I speak. And that by October, November, we can have it in Parliament to be able to be reviewed. Madam President, I actually have a full report with me. I don't need 21 days. If we can, I can table it even today so that we can just fast-track the process.
Indvuna yetemafa itawetfula lendlela hloniphekile umbiko wetimphemvulo ngalendzaba ngemalanga lange-21. Lo bikako nguSamkelisiwe Khoza naThemba Shabangu naSimuva Shongwe eParliament.
Indlela letiko letekuvakasha nemvelo umhlonishwa Jane Similane uthi maveli vekati leAfrika sekanikete inhlangano yakamhlaba yetemvelo umsebenzi wekubutha imali yetinhlelo tekubhekana nemthelela eguquka kwesimo selitulu. Lunabe ikhuluma ngesikhathi ichaza ngemhlangano wemave emhlaba wetemvelo.
Njengoba imave emhlaba achubeka abhekana nemithelela eguquka kwesimo selitulu kufaka ekhathi imvula letinemandla nesomiso kuleminye imithelela emave emhlaba ke ngaphansi kwenhlangano yetindvuna tetemvelo abambe umhlangano wama-20 wetemvelo lobanjwe eveni leKenya kubuka ukuthi engabe tisombululo talokubhekana nemithelela eguquka kwesimo selitulu bangaphuma njani nato. Indvuna yetiko letemvelo umhlonishwa Jane Similane uthi emaveli vekati leAfrika sekacele inhlangano yakamhlaba yetemvelo ukuthi ibambise lamave ngokutfola imali yetinhlelo tekubhekana nemithelela eguquka kwesimo selitulu.
Simtaskile ke UNEP kulama resolutions ethu kokuthi UNEP ungabe usagcina nje ngekubuka tikhwama takamhlaba phuma uyofuna naletinye tikhwama uye na ku private sector sibuka phela lokho ukuthi tindzaba taka climate change kude livele lelishiya lingakamoshi khona sathi ke hamba ke UNEP uyosifunela lesitawusebenta ngako thina silive nekokuthi ke sine team lesitaskako lokho ukuthi ayihambe iyobuka kusebenta kwa UNEP abukwe ke ngileli bandla lethu lesilithumako bese bayalibudgetela babudgetela lo UNEP abe nemali leyanele yekokuthi nasimthuma kokuthi akayosifunela imali yaleto tonke letvumelwano tethu esitendile under Africa akhone kuhamba akhone kusibuyela nemali kuleti vumelwano tethu ke lesiphume nato divumelana lokutawuthi wonke minister lo se Africa nakahamba aya emhlanganweni ngoba lo Amsen ubambe onke lama conventions tonke letivumelwano takamhlaba la kithi nje kangwane satimbanza kanya kuleti over 20 yaletivumelwano.
Lokunye lomhlangano waletindvuna uncome ukuthi ematiko etemafa anele kuhlela umnotfo nentfutfuko kulamave kuthi asebenzisane nematiko etemvelo kude kuhlelo kahle imali yekwesekela tinhlelo tekumelana nemthelela eguquka kwesimo selitulu. Lo bikako nguSamkelisiwe Khoza naSimuva Shongwe eMbabane.
Ihlangothi lokuqondzisa tigwegwe netimilo His Majesty's Correctional Services iniketa-ke isivo isiqiniseko sokuthi emajele akuleli asezingeni lelifanele tiboshwa letibuya eMelika leti kuleli angeke tifohle lokho kuvetela isekelela komishana walomnyango Bongani Khumalo nakakhulumisana nebetindzaba.
Likhulumisana nebetindzaba balomsakato lisekelela komishana wemnyango wokucondzisa timilo His Majesty's Correctional Services Bongani Khumalo lithi nanoma kukunengi kukhuluma isiveni ngokuba kuleli kwetiboshwa letibuya eMelika letifike evikini leliphelile kodwa-ke leto tiboshwa titena lelincane lithuba lokufohla ngoba emajele asesimeni lesifanele.
Ngakusho ngaphandle kwekungathida ukuthi lamajele lawabukile Commissioner General ngekuthunywa live kude nalinye lelicegako ukuthi singaba nelivalo nakunemuntu agcinwe ngakhona ekhathi bonke labagcinela ngekhathi siyathi thina lokuthi kuphephe kangakanani lokuthi sibagcinela ngekhathi kuze kufike ilanga labo lekuphuma baphatheke kahle nanabo njengoba bonke labanye labakhona bahlale baphatheka kahle eveni lakithi la Kangwane sikade ukuthi nabo bayawuhlala lakithi kuze kufike leso sikhathi sekuthi bahambe babuyele emaveni abo intshontsho bonke labakhona la ngekhathi laba almost 5,000 sibagcina kulandzela lokho lesaniketwa wona umthetho wesisekelo nalaba labakhona kithi bayingcenye yalaba lekumele ukuthi sibagcine sitawuqhubeka nabo sente kanjalo kungasibona bodwana wonke loyawufika nangalinye ilanga sitawuqhubeka thina sente umsebenzi wethu lesathunywa live ukuthi kasiwende kubo kuze kufike leso sikhathi lababuyela khona emaveni abo nasemakhaya kubo bathi bangefika emakhaya bangabe basaphindze babuyele ebucaleni senda lowo msebenzi wethu lesaniketwa wona live kiyana.
Khumalo-ke wengetene ukuthi wonke lota ejele uphathwa kufana kude lophathwa ngalokwehlukile. Lobika ngugiyani Msibi ngina lelethi Mhlanga nanokuphiwa Mbamali siseMalkens.
Bomake labatitfele labasebenta kuleminye imisebenzi lokufaka ekhatsi emafemini abavumelo ukuthi baye esibhedlela kuyohlolwa komntwana namake pheceleti ama-check-ups ngoba-ke bathi waya-ke esibhedlela ubuya eteke umsebenzi lokho kutholwe likomiti lelibuke kusebenta kwelitiko letemphilo eParliamentary nalibuka tindzaba tekukhula kwebantfu labasha lelikomiti-ke belihlangene nebaka Surface batsikitsa ke tona letindzaba.
Inhlangano yaka-Surface itsengitse tindzaba letekufinyelela elusitweni lwetemphilo kubantfu labasha lelwatiwa nge-sexual reproductive health lapho-ke ihlangane nelikomiti lelibuke kusebenta kwalo litiko letemphilo eParliamente. Lilunga leSouth Parliamentary Forum umhlonishwana ukuthula Dlamini lithi kunenge lokungahambi kahle kulolu hlangothi lokutalana nekuvikela tifo kubantfu labasha.
Masifika emafemini sikhandzekwe ukuthi incumbi yalabantfu labasha labalapha emafemini abakhoni kuya etibhedlela kuyo-immunizer nabasese kule stage se-pregnancy abakhoni lokuya bayojova bayogoma bente yonke le mijovo lefanele bathi kude isikhathi wanyakata waphuma angeke uhole. Lisatama ukukhulumisana nebaphathi labo labe basuke basivumele kuyokwenda leyo program ngaleso sikhathi but sibe sesiya kureporta naka labor sakureporta naka minister wetema-business.
Xolani inhleko wenhlangano yaka-Surface ukuthi babone ukuthi asebakhulumisana nelikomiti lelibuke kusebenta kwelitiko letemphilo eParliamente kude babone ukuthi bavunulisana kuphi kuyiwa njani-ke futhi embili.
Kulamalanga live libhekene nengcinamba ekubabeni kwemithi ngiletinye tikhalu letivelile letivetwe bantu labasha basaya kuyo-accessa ema-SRH services kulokubadeke kwemithi la khona abantu labasha bafike bacinzeteleke khona kakhulu nginati lana sekufike tindzabeni tekuhlela imindeni.
Sihlalo welikomiti lelibuke kusebenta kwelitiko letemphilo eParliamente umhlonishwa waSandile Nxumalo lithi lenkhulumiswano imcoka kakhulu ngoba batawubuyisela umbiko longiwo etiko.
Bathi akube nalama life skills. Mina nje ngwaka health ngicabanga ukuthi kumcoka ukuthi sibethembe laba bafuna kubambisa live ngoba sikhuluma nje live selide ama mentors.
Kuvelile ke nokuthi bantu labasha labatethwalako ikakhulu laba sesema teenagers bafika bathole amagama lahedlako edibhedlela nasemtholampilo kubonesi lokwenta ukuthi labanye bagcine bacabanga nokuthatha impilo tabo ngekungaphatheki kahle. Lobeka ngugiyani Msibi ngina lelethi Mhlanga nokuphiwa umbhamali sisedi George Kamanzini.
Livela kangwane likhutsatwa ukuthi litimbandzakanye nemazinga ekuthengiselana lamiswe kuleli vekati ngaphansi kwesivumelwano sekuthengiselana ngaphandle kwetincabekelwano ye-Africa Continental Free Trade Area lokho kuveleke emhlanganweni welibandla lelibukete emazinga kuleli netinhlangothi letitsindzekako ngemazinga noma ke ngenzima yemazinga kuleli vekati kodwa ke athuthuke noma ke kuthutuke tekuthengiselana ngaphansi kwe-AfCFTA.
Ngekubambisana nenhlangano yetemazinga kuleli vekati i-African Organization for Standardization, ARSO, lo mfundzasikolo uhlose kusita abosomabhizinisi labancane ngelwati labalitsengako kude kube melula ukuthi bemukele futhi basebenzise imigomo yemazinga lebekiwe yetekuthengiselana kuleli vekati. Mapalane jikelele waka-ARSO Dr. Hermogen Sengimana uthi noma isivumelwano sekuthengiselana ngaphandle kwetincabekelwano kuleli vekati sivula emakethe yebantfu labangetulu kwa-1 billion. Kuphumelela kwalesivumelwano kugxile ekuthenini avumelane ngemazinga lafanele kude kuthengiselana aphinda wasebenzise emava se-Afrika.
If you are not using the African harmonized standard, the industries have the right to say, why are you stopping my product while I conform to African standard?
Sengimana uthi nelivekati ngetela khona nekuthengiselana kahle ngaphandle kokuvumelana ngemazinga. Sengimana uthi live kumele libe nemagumbi lasezingeni kude akhona ukuhlola lezinga lemikhicito yakuleli. Mapalane lomkhulu etiko letekuthengiselana Melusi Masuku uthi njengoba la kuleli litakhele lihlelo i-Angelo scheme lisathenga kucinisekisa ukuthi luyahambelana yini futhi licathaniswe nemazinga akuleli vekati.
To fully leverage the benefits of the AfCFTA and align more closely with ARSO's frameworks, the Kingdom of Eswatini must enhance several aspects of its quality infrastructure.
Masuku sila kuleli kumele livale tikhebesi lokutawucinisekisa ukuthi bosomabhizinisi bathengisa ngalokulinganako. Uthe emagumbi necwaningo emikhicito kumele athuthukiswe asebenziswe tindlela tesimanje. Umphathi wenkampani lebukete emazinga kuleli Ncamiso Mhlanga uthi nanoma sekukhona lamanye alamazinga lekumele asetshenziswe live lizinga lekhicita lisephansi kuleli.
Beteleke la kuto sisita silive la kangwane ukuthi sikhone ukuthi umkhicito wethu kulezivumelwano lesikhona lekuthiwa i-Africa Free Continental Free Trade Area sikhone ukuthi sithengise kuso. Lesivumelwano lesi ke kuze ukuthi ukhone ukuthengisa usebenzisa sona kuyawudinga ukuthi lelo nalelo live lento esiciniseko sekuthi ema standards alo ayakhulumisana nema standards alamanye emave.
Kungmanje inhlangano yaka-ARSO ithi tawesekela abosomabhizinisi labancane labathathu labasehlangothini lokakha imikhicito ngesikhumba ukuthi bakhona ukubhaliswa abathole neliphawu lelishoko ukuthi imikhicito yabo isezingeni. Kubika nothele sithole navumkosenzeni sana Derek Msibi ezulwini.
Kutemidlalo umphathi wenhlangano leyengamele umdlalo wema-Olympics kanye nama-Commonwealth kuleli Maxwell Jele uthi uyethemba ukuthi umthetho loshayako eParliamente lobuke kusebenta kwetemidlalo i-Sports Bill utawusita ukuthi kwakhiwe netinkundla letikahle letitawukwenta ukuthi itemidlalo tibe sezingeni elisetulu noma ke lelo-ke lelibhekekile. Jele-ke uthi-ke live kubhekeke ukuthi eminyakeni lesihlanu letako libe selitholile imendlela yinye lokungenani emidlalweni yema-Olympics. Jele bekakhuluma nakuchubeka umhlangano lewatiwa nge-strategic plan lebeke ubanjelwe ehotela lasespiki kulembela sonto. Dikako masota mahle tindzaba tekucala kulosuku ngulo luhlelo Kusile breakfast show kulesikhatsi manje tatsala khefu lelifishane luhlelo liyachubeka. Don't go anywhere. This is Kusile. Good morning.
side lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna senze ukukhicita lokusembili.
Welcome back. It's exactly 35 minutes after 6. You will remember that Eswatini is part of the Japan Expo that started in April and is expected to end in October. Now, while much of the world looks inward in the face of economic uncertainty, now Eswatini is boldly casting its gaze outward to Asia, to innovation, to investment. The Osaka Expo is not just an exhibition, but it is a live case study in how nations define and sell their future. Now, at the heart of it, there's exhibitions, there's national days, trade showcases, as well as sharp discussions about special economic zones and tourism investment. Eswatini is there not only to show what we offer as a tiny kingdom in Africa and the SADC region, but to also learn what it is that it takes to compete. Representing the kingdom, as well as the pavilion manager there is Simpiwe Ndendesa, who now joins us virtually via our Zoom link. He is live in Japan. Ndendesa, good morning. Welcome to the program. We hope we are not waking you up too early, but I believe you are 6 hours ahead. So we are only feeling that brunt. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Mnguni. Good morning to your viewers back at home. Hopefully I'm audible enough. And thank you very much for inviting Team Eswatini to unpack what is happening at the Expo.
Simpiwe, you've been on the ground for some time now. If you will give us a sense, please, of the energy, but not only the energy, as well as the purpose that is behind the Osaka Expo. What does it mean for a small but ambitious country like Eswatini?
Thank you so much, Mnguni. The energy at the Expo, it's quite phenomenal. Since it opens its gates on the 13th of April, the influx of visitors, Mnguni, has been quite overwhelming. So we have daily attendance of head of state, government officials, and business leaders on top of the ordinary visitors from the Asian community and the rest of the world. So Eswatini, Mnguni, just to unpack the background behind the exhibitions. Eswatini is one of the 184 member states of the Bureau of International Exhibitions. So we actually use the Expo as a platform to showcase our culture, trade, tourism, investment, economic development, technology capabilities, and our SDG success stories. So Mnguni, this Japan Expo participation, it's our third time right now. So following up our participation in the Dubai Expo in 2020, and the 2000 participation in Germany and Hanover. So Mnguni, back to your question, asking about Eswatini being a small country that is so ambitious to be in this particular center of stage. We have seen small countries such as the Republic of Nauru with a population of almost 12,000 participating in the expos. We have seen Seychelles, Mnguni, a small country in Africa, being part of these expos. So, Mnguni, the expos demonstrate that even smaller nations can shine at global stage. We have entities such as APA, ETA, ENTC, RSTP, and others that must participate in the international stage. So our involvement, Mnguni, in Dubai 2020 has already started yielding results.
Several nations, several national days rather, and exhibitions are also there. What themes are standing out, and what have you taken away from the way other countries are positioning themselves? Because, like you're mentioning, we ought to learn from the other countries that are, more developed than us.
That is absolutely correct, Mr. Mngoni. But before I respond to the question, let me just highlight that Eswatini has its National Day that came and go on the 3rd of June, and which was gracefully graced by the presence of the Right Honorable Prime Minister, His Excellency Russell Dlamini, our senior government officials, and officials from the host country. So basically, this themes are accompanied by cultural performance. These themes, they deepen our understanding of cultural from the different participating countries and contribute to the promotion of international goodwill. So the months of June and July, Mnguni, saw the celebrations of countries from the SADC regions. And those themes were centered around mixing culture and business for our future society. Looking at our theme, Mnguni, our history defines our future society. We have got vast indigenous knowledge left by our forefathers, Mnguni, such as Boba Benhlavana Masego, which shouldn't go to waste. So, Mnguni, we have seen a number of countries presenting their pride, their cultural heritage in this particular expos. So therefore, going forward, one must say that the Royal Science and Technology Park has to play a significant role in protecting and commercializing our indigenous knowledge passed down from generations to generation, such as Timbi Tamgun. I've seen that people, they go for Viagra. I'm sorry to say that word, but we do have got our own, such as Bomvusanguns, Rising the Bull, which we can commercialize and take it to help the benefit of the future society and actually the world. So I'm good. In conclusion, one may say that we have got a Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority, which can work together with Eswatini Standards Authority and others such as the WHO to establish our own pharmaceutical industries in terms of how we can take this indigenous knowledge to the rest of the world, as we have seen that with the Taiwanese and also all the Asian companies, they're giving us the green teas that actually assist us to cleanse ourselves so we can take this to the rest of the world. Timbita, our Rising the Pool.
Indeed, Ndendesa, and I suppose just to back up your assertion there, we did have a health practitioner as we were observing July Wellness Month last week, and he made a Siswati metaphor that kuhlakula emfabantu kubantu besilisa likhuba kufuna ukuthi libe ngelikhaliphile ingakwesinzi ingakwehlule, and certainly it's not only unique to Eswatini kuhlakula emfabantu, nabo banemasimabo lekufuna bawahlakule, and yeah, indeed, hopefully we can be able to commercialize and position Rising the Bull there in Japan, as well as the many other products. But I want to understand in what it is that we are really showcasing there. You have spoken, frankly about June, July being a time where SADC countries were really observing their national days and just showcasing what we have as Africa, particularly our culture and business. But what it is really that we are showcasing when it comes to business as the Kingdom of Eswatini, and what kind of feedback or interest have we received from the global audiences and investors there?
Thank you, Mnguni. We cannot divorce culture and economic development, because culture, it actually makes who we are. So as a country, we are showcasing our cultural heritage and traditions as a source of peace and stability. So which in turn translates into the economic development. So we are promoting trade, investments, tourism, technological advancement, and our infrastructural development. If you look at the roads that we actually have as a country in terms of the infrastructural development, we are quite doing well. So we also highlight our Eswatini's aspirations in terms of our contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals, answering where we are right now and what needs to be done to achieve them by the year 2030. So we have had the privilege to participate in business forums and discussions around issues of facing humanity. So we are now in the process of signing an MOU with the Osaka Chambers of Commerce and Industry. So in essence, the ball is rolling. We have already begun working with the Chambers of Commerce as our products right now, such as those from Ngwenya Glass, Swazi Kenglis have gone rural, and others are now listed in the business mall or the business matching platform. So, this is quite massive. The Chambers of Commerce, absolutely. It's quite massive. When we talk about the membership of the Chambers of Commerce, we're talking about 31,941 with 290,000 Japanese companies accessing those platforms. And this is an excellent opportunity for our local businesses in the kingdom to link with the Japanese and the Asian market. I'm going to conclude with your question, Mungun. So, talking about our history, it goes without saying that we have got strong ties with the all Asian community, in particular Japan. We actually once had a visitor coming to our pavilion that actually exports grapefruits from the Libombo region. So they actually export the grapefruit and can them and sell it to the Japanese market. Beyond that, Mngoni, the visitors were actually shocked. The business community was actually shocked that the oldest mine in the world is located in Eswatini, the Ngwenya iron ore, which was used to build the Japanese cars. I think you remember back then in the 1980s, Mngoni, when I was still at preschool, we used to sing, Nasi sitimen, sikamga engwe, siya please. So there's quite a lot, Mngoni. The YKK Zipas, Mngoni, that was opened in 1976 by the president of YKK and His Majesty King Sobhuza II. Happy birthday, Your Majesty. Long live your spirit, Your Majesty. Thank you.
Indeed. Well, Ndendesa, I may not be in a position to actually remember what happened in the 80s or in the 70s. I wasn't born yet. I wasn't even conceived as something that could be conceived yet, But you've exposed your age there. But we really love, the history that you're bringing up and making it relatable to your peers. And I'm sure Sanipo Ngongwane, who I'm co-hosting the show with today, easily relates to that, along with my many other production team members who were born in the 80s and the 70s, just like you. And, we understand business forums there have been pivoting towards special economic zones. And I know that is a buzzword not only in Japan, it has been a buzzword in Eswatini. How are we presenting our special economic zones strategy as the Kingdom of Eswatini? And who is listening?
Oh, yes. Mnguni, in our business forum that was held on the morning before our National Day celebration, the main guest speaker was the Right Honorable Prime Minister, His Excellency Russell Dlamini. The APA CEO, who doubles as the Commissioner General for the Expo, Mr. Sibani Ngomezulu, correctly unpacked the SEZ program for the country. So he actually presented it as a model. So basically, as an agile, investor-friendly ecosystem with a strong governance. As right now, we are in the process of reviewing our Special Economic Zone Act of 2018, and also outlined the opportunities across the manufacturing, the agribusiness, the ICT, and other sectors, which our investors can tap on. So basically, as a country, Mnguni, we are framing the SEZ as a soft landing zones for the Japanese SMEs and all investors that are keen to enter the African market. So our target is the African market, where we have got access to SACU, SADC, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, COMESA, and others. So the listeners, Mnguni, those who are actually giving us the listening ears, are the highlighted members of the Chamber of Commerce, the developing agents such as the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, which we have got strong bonds with, and also the private sector players from the Asian community.
Moving along, tourism in Eswatini is a key priority, especially, you can attest, Mauvunulile there in Japan. I'm sure the energy is different. The people that want to talk to you, triple or double. As tourism becomes a key priority, areas like hotels, golf courses in Eswatini are now actually a conversation. I've heard through the grapevine in Babane, we should be seeing a golf course being built, an 18-hole golf course in Babane, as well as, some destination developments as well. What could you say are some of the specific opportunities that are being explored with Japanese or the regional partners there?
Sorry, Muni. No, thank you so much, Mgun. We're very fortunate to have the presence of the Minister of Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Honorable Jane Mkonda Simelane, and the ETA senior government senior officials who actually presented a clear outline of our tourism ambition. So, indeed, Mnguni, we are exploring partnerships around luxury ecotourism, tourism infrastructure development, such as the construction of those infrastructure, such as golf courses that can bring tourists into our country, because sports tourism has played a significant role in most number of countries. So basically, we are also looking at our cultural circuit packages. So it was very fortunate that the ENTC was part of the expo. So we're looking at how we can link Eswatini to Asia's outbound tourism programs. So I'm going through these business forums. We actually observed that most countries are making significant strides when it comes to the special economic zone programs in the tourism sector. So those countries' advancement in designating land for tourism SEZ was a serious eye-opener to everyone from the Kingdom of Eswatini. So one of the lessons that we actually, or one of the things that we actually picked on those forums was that tourism right now, it's actually surpassing the mining and agriculture in terms of its GDP contribution. So I think we have actually seen with our bushfire, if you look at the number of visitors that were there. So it was absolutely amazing, absolutely fantastic. So the SEZ program, Guni, it's quite a game changer. So it has got a vast potential to create jobs in the hospitality industry. So one may urge ENTC to consider the special economic zone programs in one of their lands. So whereby we can bring the investors to build chalets, to build golf courses, to build hotels, and hire our people to work in the tourism industry.
100%. And 100%, as you did mention earlier, that we cannot divorce our culture from our development. And indeed, we've seen what, how much, our culture plays with regards to tourism. And we are looking at Umhlanga Reed Dance very shortly. And I hope we'll be seeing you back in Eswatini in your traditional regalia with some Japanese there. And maybe some Japanese women and men to come and enjoy the Umhlanga Reed Dance very shortly.
Absolutely.
Moving along, you've mentioned the business mall as well as the Osaka Chamber of Commerce playing a role in selling Swazi products, candles going rural and all the other products that you've mentioned. That soft power, how imperative is that, and what kind of traction are our goods gaining in these conversations? Other goods, perhaps, that are not there with you guys, that, you sat with yourself and you imagined if they were here, they would be gaining a lot of traction?
Thank you so much, Mgun. So through all the business mall and the Osaka Chamber platforms, our Swazi crafts, which we are truly blessed from God for giving us the skills, and also our natural products, Mgun, are now entering a business conversation with the Asian market as a viable commercial goods. So the attraction, it's quite encouraging. Some of these companies, they've already initiated inquiries through APA regarding contract manufacturing, bulk exports, and co-branding initiatives. So every time at the pavilion, you see a Japanese person touching our artistic glassware made of 100% recycled materials, or the Swazi Kenglis that we actually have. They feel the country, they experience our country. So that moment, it's quite priceless. So we do have got a potential. Our wish is to see each and every household in the Asian community having a piece of Ngwenya glass artistic glassware, having a piece of our handcraft in their household, the Swazi Kenglis as well in their household. So this moment, Mnguni, although I'm once again exposing my age, it reminds me back in those days at preschool, Mnguni, whereby we used to rhyme. I'll take you through the song, Mnguni. Nasi sitimela siqhamuka eNgwe siyaphi lesitimela siya eJapan. So it's one of the things when we're young, we grow up, we never knew that one day we are going to find ourselves not only exporting the iron ore, we'll be exporting our products such as the Swazi Kenglis, the glassware, and other products, including the timbita, the traditional herbs that I was talking about, taking it to the rest of the world and Asia.
Ndesa Simpiwe Ndesa is the pavilion manager at the Japan Expo, which kicked off on the 13th of April and it ends on the 13th of October. We are fitting in quite impressively in the competitive global stage there in Japan. And hopefully the investment train, Lestimela Lakulmangaso, will continue to bear the results that it is promising. Let's go for a break. We have our traffic update when we return. All right, it's 57 minutes after 6. Kusikhatsanyalo sita utfola traffic update yethu ngabe simo semgwaqo simi kanjani niseta uphuma niye khona emisebenzini. Sisele kakhulu singabe i-traffic update yethu namhla imi kanjani nomhla ekseni sina noSipho.
Anguvusele ngabe inkosi ngiphinze ngivusele naye umbukeli wemsakazo iSwazi TV. Imigwaqo yelive laseSwatini sesiyihlolile lesinako nje ukuthi tiba netemigwaqo letingasebenzi kulethe lapha kamanzini eRiman Center. Bashayeli ke bayaxwayiswa ukuthi abanikane inhlonipho babeketelelane lofike kuqala anike lithuba lokuthi ahambe kuqala. Asichubeka sihlolene nemigwaqo yethu lapha enase-Esteki kuneloli lefele khona emgwaqweni kumzila longena khona phela Esteki kaFuten. Bashayeli ke baxwayiswa ukuthi abashayele ngekucophelela izinga lekunaka libe ngilezetulu kakhulu basahamba kuleyo ndzawo leyo ke. Ngalokunye bashayeli bayawuthi bahambe etindzaweni lapho khona kuphithikela abantu abesikolo khona noma kunetikolwa khona bayexwayiswa ukuthi izinga labo lekunaka alibe ngilezetulu kakhulu. Banciphise litumane labahamba ngalo baphinde bagweme konke lokungahle baphathamisa basashayela. Bantwana akusibona abantu longabathemba na uhamba emgwaqweni. Sisahlola yona imigwaqo yethu siyanaka ukuthi etindzaweni letahlukahlukane eVenezuela tinkomo tiyachubeka tiba sikinyabete kubashayeli. Ikakhulu na usuka thatha umgwaqo losuka khona emafutheni uye eMandlangampisi, usuka eMandlangampisi uye eZoye, usuka eNgogola uye kaLonhlupheko, nana usuka khona kumhlaba ubovu uya eGunya. Sinde sasibona endzaweni yasenhlambeni nana ubheka khona kumehlo abovu, nasemkhuzweni ubheke khona eBig Bend. Bashayeli bayaxwayiswa ukuthi basahamba kuleti ndzawo lengutivikile izinga lekunaka lapho alibe ngilesetulu kakhulu. Lokunye lesinako nxumalo eBig Bend uyachubeka umsebenzi wokuvuna wona umoba. Ikulumba ke nemaloli tiyaphithitela tiyangena emshineni. Baxwayiswa nje bashayeli ukuthi cela kube nekubeketelelana phela kulandzela ukuthi leti kulumba nema-trucks tithi tihamba nje kuphithitela tihamba kancane tiphinde kulandzelane dudane kwenta ukuthi lofuna ku-overtake abe nebukhoni ukuthi aku-overtake. Lokunye leti kwenta ukuthi ti-overload umthwalo wato kakhulu. Baxwayisa ke bashayeli ukuthi
abakugweme kuye ukuthi batilandzele dutane ukuze phela sivikele kuye ukuthi uma bana udilika lapho ungaweli etimotolweni tabo ingakho lesinato namuhla ngaba yingozi.
Ngamane sibakhulu kubonye wandlovu i-traffic update lebuya lapha emaphoyiseni embubene sive laseluhlangothini lwetemigwaqo nisaphuma-ke nisaya emisebentini sendawo ati ukuthi thikabeto tikuphi asibahloneni makethe sitabuya netindzaba.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.sz. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
It's a minute past 7. Welcome back to the second bulletin of the Kusile Breakfast Show for the Tuesday edition. I'm Sana Point. Go on, let's continue with the news. Our first story is His Excellency, the Right Honourable Prime Minister Russell Miso Dlamini says government through the Ministry of Finance is working on projects to improve the welfare of police officers. His Excellency was speaking in Parliament on Monday.
His Excellency the Right Honourable Prime Minister Russell Dlamini on Monday delivered his preamble on the performance of his office during the first quarter of the 2025-2026 financial year, which was followed by a debate.
General President Global Council for Political Renewal, Sir Tradition. Sibonge kakhulu futhi shothi livela ngwane livela kahle ngaphandle umsebenzi nawe neplanjam siyamthumisa kakhulu ele insurance amaphoyisa medical aid ngiva ngathi sisele emuva kakhulu nakakafanele ngabe sosayikhuluma namanje
siyayicela iwelfare yamaphoyisa ukuthi basupporteke phinde babe ne-medical aid la maphoyisa nkulukhulu sesihlalweni labantu abanama uniform abana-medical aid kude nje lutho, they are just stressed bedeke nale mali konke njengawo konke ama-civil servants.
Ngabe vele ka-cabinet so njalo nakuthi nisebenza collective niyafana yena ikhibo lebuhlungu uthi mhlawumbe uma usemsebenzini ukhuluma nge-cabinet bona mhlawumbe lo muntu wasecabinet ajikela lula lanayo le-cabinet
akujabulela silivele emaswati sinakujabulela futhi sesiyiphalamende uyibona le collectivity in your working nisasebenza njenge-executive yelive.
His Excellency responded to the debate.
I-grand plan bekumele yenziwe ngemaswati baba seyiphelile it's ready sifisa ukuthi le grand plan aseyiphumile sihlale la kuyo sinamathele la kuyo ngoba lokwenta umehluko entuthukwini yelive lo sinasethe plan lihlale la kuyo le-implement police housing siyayisebenza lenzaba sekushoda ngetimali kuphela so sifumile indvuna mafa ukuthi ayifune tona timali tekulungisa tindlu temaphoyisa kungasito tona toto so manje ke ibe seseyisalela emuva lenzaba leyo so lo siyayilandelela with the Ministry of Finance.
The Prime Minister's office will submit a report of all the responses before the Honourable Committee on Tuesday. Reporting, Samgal Siwekoza and Zimova Shongwe, Parliament.
Now, the Prime Minister's Portfolio Committee wants clarity on the nature of the agreement that allowed 5 individuals deported from the United States of America to remain in Eswatini. The honourable members were speaking during the debate of the Prime Minister's performance report for the first quarter of the 2025-2026 financial year.
Following a preamble by His Excellency the Right Honourable Prime Minister Russell Dlamini on the performance of his ministry, the Prime Minister's Office Portfolio Committee asked for clarity on a reported agreement between the Kingdom of Eswatini and the United States involving 5 deportees currently in the kingdom.
letawumikisa khona nabantu labangasibo balalo live labalimikisa kulo nama third party deportees siphile sakangwane isivumelwane nelive limeli live lemaswati angumholo kahulumeni bathi tena bafika labantu la bavumelene ukuthi 1 2 sitawukenani ngalokufika kwalabantu la kunema possible deals ngabe soyindile mhlawumbe simikise i-toilet scholarship noma kuthola imisebenzi noma sikhulisa ikhotha yethu ya agowa lokuthi sinenyalo sisayine ini neMerica kune agreement kukhona into ukuthi nema terrorists bangawaletha la kangwane Mr Chairman letimali Mr Chairman is it true yini Mr Chairman lokuthi exchange imali letesabekile la kule deal
agreements batos lecture la devotion template lapha mathapha nawe mathapha that is what I believe in
ngifuna nje ukuhlola ukuthi kuleyo agreement asinotikanza nje siyabathi akusibo imfihlo bhelelwane lesibonile of late emkhatsini welivele libomakhelwane bethu nayo iMerica utsungabe laba labagxute lesiphila ngabo mihla yonke akusinotkanza yini sisilimala kuletinye tinzalo.
Invoking Standing Order 81, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee Nathi Hlophe asked His Excellency the Right Honourable Prime Minister to submit a report of written responses on Tuesday. Reporting Samgalsiwe Khoza and Zimuva Shongwe, Parliament.
The Deputy Prime Minister, the Honourable Kusile, says she would not be doing justice if she would sit in her office all day long without visiting Eswatini on the ground and take care of their needs. The TPM was speaking at Ngwene, where she was officially opening 3 houses which were built by government for the elderly. KNMCB has more on that story.
The Deputy Prime Minister, Senator Kusile, started by touring the Ngwene Market and Garden, which is owned by an organization of Ngwene women and has been in existence for quite some time. She joined them in planting the garden and further encouraged them to press on and work in unity for a good production. She says even investors may come on board and assist them financially, who knows. Still under Ngwene, the Deputy Prime Minister proceeded to 3 homesteads where she officially opened 3 houses which were built by government to 3 elderly people. The DPM says theirs as government is to ensure a good livelihood for Maswati and meet their needs where possible.
Asiphumike ngokuthi kumbe sikhuthele yini lo msebenzi lesiniko wona uthi ngeke vele uhlale ehovisi impela ngabe imhlolo uma uhlele ehovisi Dosi mase kubiyelwa lesibayeni kukhanzeke ukuthi lokho lokwasho ingwenyama asikakwendi.
She says the Maswati spoke their heart during the Sibaya session where they asked government to be hands-on and be on the ground in knowing the conditions the Maswati live in. The beneficiaries say their houses would now and again collapse since they were in a dilapidated state. Making things worse is that they live with children, some being school-going children, where their books were destroyed, making life terrible. Government has built countless number of proper houses to deserving citizens and continues to do so. Reporting I'm KNMCB with Pegima Zubugo, Ngwene.
Now, the Senate says the Ministry of Finance needs to improve the tendering and procurement process without compromising corruption safeguards. Senators were speaking in Parliament on Monday. Samgaswa Koza had more on the story.
When the Senate convened for parliamentary work on Monday, Senator Isaac Makakula, seconded by Senator Stelo Dlamini, moved that the Honourable Minister of Finance, Nel Rickenberg, report to Senate solutions to improve the tendering process.
Structures lakhona harmonized kanjani wakhona Eswatini Public Procurement Regulatory Authority bese kuba khona lenye lesikhuluma nge-tender board base banike umsebenzi bantu vele aqhathe la ka procurement lokuthi wena wekunene nangabe usichargeile nangu 1 billion wemgwaqo sicela ukuthi vele laba badozi lo msebenzi sicela uphele ngaleyo mali lesachajana yona.
The Senate debated the motion.
Dola ka finance isembisile ukuthi cha liyawubuketa ngomthetho kufuneka ukuthi utiko imvume isinikete umbiko lofaka naloko lokuthi sebakhashana kangakanani ukuthi umthetho ufike eParliament.
Lenza lena ikhalisa laba supply yabo kahulumende iphinze ikhalise nesive sonke nje ukuthi kunemsebenzi lecalwako bekweke ukuthi live litawutfutfuka nakuphela nje letakhiwo kube nenjabulo lenkulu kodwa kukhanze ukuthi sekuyadvonsa
lana umuntu nakanikiwe lo msebenzi kuthiwe nayi tender soyitholile uthi ke esecondary lapha kube sekuphela leti mali angathi ke usiphela kulo muntu yini noma kuba ngihulumende longabhadali lo muntu besifana lenkinga.
The Honourable Minister of Finance, Nel Rickenberg, responded to the motion.
And so that's a commitment that we can make, is that there's legislation for this. Like I say, is being worked on as I speak. And that by October, November, we can have it in Parliament to be able to be reviewed. Madam President, I actually have a full report with me. I don't need 21 days. If we can, I can table it even today so we can just fast-track the process.
The Honourable Minister of Finance is to submit a report to Senate on possible solutions to improve the tendering and procurement process. Reporting Samgal Siwekoza and Zmuva Shongwe with Temba Shabangu, Parliament.
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Jane Tsimelane, says the African member states have tasked the United Nations Environment Programme to mobilize revenue for climate change projects. The Honourable Minister was speaking when unpacking the ordinary session of the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment held in Kenya.
With the impacts of climate change, United Nations member states in Kenya held the 20th ordinary session of the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment. The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Jane Tsimelane, said African states have given the United Nations Environment Programme a task to mobilize funds for climate change resilience.
Taskile ke UNEP kulama resolutions ethu. Kokuthi UNEP ungabe usagcina nje ngekubuka tikhwama takamhlaba phuma uyofuna naletinye tikhwama uye na ku private sector.
The Honourable Minister says UNEP has been a steadfast partner in advancing sustainable development, climate resilience and environment governance across Africa. She says the member states were also encouraged to deepen collaboration with UNEP and ensure that funding translates into tangible impacts on the group. The meeting also resolved that the Ministries of Environment will now fully involve the Ministries of Finance and Economic Planning on climate change programs. Reporting Samgal Siwekoza and Simuva Shongwe, Babane.
Now, His Majesty's Correctional Services has assured the nation that their facilities are in a good condition. Deportees from the United States of America have no choice of escaping. This was said by the Deputy Commissioner General Bongani Khumalo in an interview with the news crew.
The Deputy Commissioner General of His Majesty's Correctional Services, Bongani Khumalo, says with the Maswati talking non-stop on the arrival of deportees from the United States, Khumalo has given a Maswati the assurance that their facilities as a correctional facility are up to standard and no inmate has the chance to escape, especially where there's
ngakusho ngaphandle kwekugatsida ukuthi lamajele lawa abukile Commissioner General ngekuthunywa live kude nalinye lelicegako ukuthi singaba nelivalo nakunemuntu agcinwe ngakhona ekhathi bonke labagcinela ngekhathi siyathi tsinelo ukuthi kuphephe kangakanani lokuthi sibagcinela ngekhathi kuze kufike ilanga labo lekuphuma
deportees are kept. Khumalo says they work according to an act and law which mandates them to treat all inmates the same. Therefore, these ones are not different. They are in good hands. Khumalo goes on to say that theirs is to follow the law and ensure the good health of these inmates like any other. But as far as security is concerned, all is in order. He says they will keep them and trace them until their time to go to their respective countries comes. Reporting I'm Kiani Msibi with Lilith Mhlanga and Nokpiwa Mpamali, Luyengo.
Some employers, especially those from the textile industry, do not allow pregnant women to go for medical checkups. The workers are threatened and informed that they will not get paid or that they will lose their jobs should they go to the hospital. These were the findings from the Ministry of Health Portfolio Committee when they visited some companies. They also had a meeting with SAFAIDS where they discussed SRH issues.
SAFAIDS had a discussion with the Ministry of Health Portfolio Committee where they discussed access to sexual reproductive health services by the youth in the country. The shocking part is that the Portfolio Committee and the SADC Parliamentary Forum conducted a study where they find that women who work in the textile industry are not afforded the opportunity to go for check-ups during pregnancy. It is said they are told one word that if they leave for hospital, they will not get paid or lose their jobs.
Masifika emafemini sikhanzeke ukuthi incumbi yalabantu labasha labalapha emafemini abakhoni kuya etibhedlela.
The Member of Parliament says they have tried addressing the matter with the Ministry of Commerce and that of the Ministry of Health.
Kulamalanga live libhekene nengcinamba ekubabeni kwemithi ngiletinye tikhalu letivelile letivedwe bantu abasha.
SAFAID's country director Xolani Nhleko says the discussion is important because they do hope that these gaps will be addressed.
Bathi akube nalama life skills. Mina nje ngwaka health ngicabanga ukuthi umcoka uthi sibethembe laba abafuna kubambisa leave.
The Minister of Health Portfolio Committee Chairperson Honorable Sandile Nxumalo says they will ensure that they address the issues and submit them to the Minister of Health. Some teenagers who fall pregnant and go to access services in the hospitals and clinics of the country, it is said they receive harsh words from the hospital staff because of their pregnancy, leading to some opting for suicide. Reporting I'm Kiani Msibi with Lilith Mhlanga and Nokpiwa Mpamali, Manzini.
Eswatini is urged to align with continental trade standards as the country strengthens its participation in the African Continental Free Trade Area. Now, this is during the Eswatini Standards Authority SWASA training and awareness program targeting industry stakeholders on the role of harmonized African standards in driving trade under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA.
In partnership with the African Organization for Standardization, ARSO, the training focuses on equipping local regulators and SMEs with the knowledge needed to adopt and implement uniform standards across the continent. Secretary-General of the African Organization for Standardization, Hermogene Nsengimana, stresses that while Africa Continental Free Trade Area opens a market of over 1 billion people, its success relies on the widespread adoption of compatible standards among member states.
If you are not using the African Harmonized Standard, the industries have the right to say, why are you stopping my product while I conform to African standard? You cannot trade as a continent if you don't have harmonized standard, if you don't have equivalence in technical regulation, if there is no acceptability of the results, the test results.
Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Melus Masugu, says Eswatini's alignment with international and regional standards boosts the credibility of domestic products in global markets, although there is a need to close critical gaps to create a level ground for businesses to trade efficiently.
To fully leverage the benefits of the AFCFTA and align more closely with ARSO's frameworks, the Kingdom of Eswatini must enhance several aspects of its quality infrastructure.
Eswatini Standards Authority Executive Director Ncamiso Mhlanga says the authority is working towards the adoption of some of ARSO's standards. However, there is a need for the improvement of infrastructure and understanding of technical regulations.
Some of these products, before they are sent out to this lucrative market, they will need to comply with standards and also comply in terms of quality. For now, we are nearing about 400 standards as SWASA, that standards that we have developed. The way we are doing it is based on demand.
Last year, the Ministry of Commerce reported that about 32% of formal SMEs in Eswatini were aware of AFCFTA requirements. The national AFCFTA strategy targets to increase compliance rate by 50% by the year 2026, with a focus on high-potential export sectors such as agro-processing and value-added crafts, among others. For Eswatini TV News, Nosile Sithole, Vumingo Sentinisa and Derek Msibi, Ezulwini.
Now, contractors have identified cost overruns, erratic bidding and inexperienced estimation as core barriers to competitive growth for the small-scale contractors. According to Eswatini Contractors Association Secretary General Percy Mazibuko, he says many small contractors face difficulty in responding to tenders due to poorly structured quotations, resulting in unrealistic project delivery promises.
The Eswatini Contractors Association is hosting a 3-day estimating training program aimed at boosting business competence and compliance in the country's construction sector. The Eswatini Contractors Association says while estimation is often a technical function, it remains of strategic importance for profitability and business credibility.
We have a lot of jobs in the market that are failing for reasons of underpricing. You find that there are few jobs, and then there's a lot of contractors, they are competing for a few jobs, and then they are pushed to tender low. At the end of the day, the project will fail because it is not being executed at the right price. So there is that vacuum. And obviously the accuracy and precision is important. Even if there is no gap, but we need to keep on reminding our members. Yes, it is professionalized actually, but we just need to make sure we consistently remind them to keep abreast of current trends. If you are accurate, obviously, it's going to minimize wastage. It goes without saying. But it is important because you have to compare different professional prices. Then you know that at the end of the day, this is the average. The project cannot exceed this figure or it cannot be below this figure. If you are trying to professionally price a specific tender and you know the price, you already know the price, there is a tendency of you working towards that specific price instead of just doing your job professionally without being influenced by the budget.
Mazibuko adds that there is a need for heightened regulatory measures for mandatory estimating certification, calling for national benchmarks for unit costing to strengthen tendering standards. In 2024, Eswatini's construction sector contributed 4.1% to GDP, while over 1.8 billion emalangeni in public infrastructure projects were tendered nationally in the same year. For Eswatini TV News, Nosile Sithole, Vumingo Sentinisa and Derek Msibi, Ezulwini.
The United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency has donated various hygiene and grooming items for 400 children. This cost 60,000 Malangeni and has been donated to Vlamasango High School pupils.
His Majesty's Correctional Services Commissioner General Pendile Dlamini says this support will go a long way in helping Vlamasango High School pupils.
Ngibonga kakhulu ushilo principal ukuthi labantwana we love them so much. And mase ngichamuka nani into asibambisa ehluphekeni lesinako nendlela esebenta ngayo abantwana kuyasita kakhulu.
Dlamini says they will ensure that the hygiene products are used properly and the feedback is given to the UNFPA. The UNFPA Eswatini Head of Office, Margaret Twala, said the request for this dignity packs came from a student at the school, who highlighted that their learners needed the support. She said they donated 400 packs, which will benefit both girls and boys. Twala says they will plan to make further donations to the school as they want to be part of the team contributing to the success of its learners.
One of your beautiful girls, a very powerful girl, was part of the people that shared the event. And that girl requested for this gift on behalf of the girls. The intention really is based on our shared dream of ensuring dignity of all young people, all Emaswati. Siyabonga kakhulu ningadzinwa uma kukhona leningasita ngako noma ngabe emehlweni alomunye ngabukeka ukuthi kumncane.
Vulamasango High School head teacher Gabisa Dlamini says the school is grateful for the UNFPA's generosity. She says the donation will have a long-lasting impact. She also says anything received, no matter how small, means a lot to them because the school faces many serious challenges. The donated items include bath soap, bath towel, deodorant, body lotion, and sanitary towels for girls. Reporting is Lilti Mhlanga with Giani Msibi in Malkens.
And shocking news, a police officer based at the Malkens police station is reported to have shot and killed himself. The police officer was found dead this Monday morning within the premises of the Malkens police camp.
Eswatini TV has established that the police officer worked in the administrative department. The officer was reported at the level of assistant inspector. It has also been gathered that on Sunday night, the deceased called one of his colleagues and shared the challenges he was facing in life, which reported included depression. Police chaplains were alerted about the deceased situation after his colleague expressed concern over the way he had been speaking. It has also been gathered that the deceased had not served at the Malkens police station for a long time, having been transferred from the police headquarters in Babane. Police Chief Communications and Informations Officer Senior Superintendent Pindile Vilagati confirms the report of the officer who was found dead.
Sisotholile umbiko ekseni ukuthi kuneliphoyisa lelitholakele endlini lahlala khona lishonile.
We received a report in the morning that a police officer was found dead inside the house. It is suspected that he allegedly shot himself. Police investigations are still underway to establish the facts surrounding the incident.
Attempts to get hold of the deceased family were unsuccessful, hence his name has been withheld. The deceased had served in the police force for over 25 years. Reporting Fortune Dlanga Mandla with Nompendulo Shabalala in Skumbuzo Mavimbela, Malkens.
Back in the sports news this morning, the Chief Executive Officer of the Olympic and Commonwealth Games Association in the country, Maxwell Jele, says he is hopeful that the Sports Act recently discussed in Parliament will help improve the development of the sports infrastructure and raise the standard of the sports to an internationally competitive level. Jele says the nation is aiming to achieve an Olympic medal within next 5 years. He was speaking during the strategic plan meeting held at Pikes Peak Hotel this past weekend.
Eswatini is still struggling to achieve a podium finish at the Olympics. In an effort to change that, the Eswatini Olympics and Commonwealth Games Association, IOCA, held a meeting this past weekend with its affiliates and Eswatini Sports and Recreation Council to develop a 4-year strategic plan.
Besitsingitsa tona letindzaba mhlambe nato letingcinamba letikhona kakhulu. Sijabulile kubona ngoma solo siyalandzelela nema processes lachubekako kahulumende ikakhulu la hambisana netindzaba tabo Sports Act kwekuthi le process yekupromulgate sports bill into a sports act sesisondzele sesiyangakhona.
Jele says the biggest stumbling block in sports development in the country is the lack of proper facilities. He adds that they are hoping the Sports Act will be passed in Parliament as it will enable companies to finance sports. Robert Mtswage, a facilitator from Zimbabwe, said the meeting will help by starting at the grassroots level to identify proper talent and eventually establish clear pathways to the top. However, he emphasized that this requires patience and commitment.
There is a conveyor belt, right from talent identification up to podium performance. So they will work with that, but a lot of resources will be required, a lot of work will be required, but I think we are on the right trajectory now. But you must tell the AMA Swati to exercise more patience. I know people cannot wait forever, but it will come in stages.
Following the meeting, the official strategic development plan will soon be presented and implemented soon. Over 30 participants attended the 2-day workshop. Reporting, I'm Linda Dlamini with Bonke Dlamini, Pix Peak.
Right, that's how we hit the home stretch of the second bulletin of the Tuesday edition here at Eswatini TV. This is Kusile Breakfast Show. Right about now, we take a quick commercial break. When we come back, our expert in-house economist, Sanele Sibia, unpacks the loan that we got from the African Development Bank to tell us more on the opportunities that are set there for about 5,000 youth in the Kingdom of Eswatini. But that is when we come back. Sfiso Ngumalo, it will be in conversation with Sanele Sibia. When we come back, do join us after the break.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sente ukukhiqiza lokusembili.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you'll go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
All right, there's 33 minutes after 7. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, this morning, the promise of 5,000 jobs and a strategic economic shift are front and center. In fact, that headline broke yesterday, Eswatini securing that 841.7 million emalangeni from the African Development Bank, which is not just a number if you think about it, but a potential lifeline for thousands and thousands of Emaswati. Now, we're talking revitalizing MSMEs. We are talking unlocking private investment implement the funding that is tied to our national budget priorities. But how deep is the impact? How soon might we see the change? And more crucially, will this be enough to soften the fiscal and youth unemployment blows we continue to face? Joining me now, Sanelus B, our economist, who is going to unpack the economic significance of this injection, as well as what it signals about the country's trajectory going forward. Good morning, Mr. Spear.
Good morning.
It's funny, yesterday on Market View, we spoke about the first quarter budget.
Yeah.
And, just the reality that we have pretty much spent more than what should be, feasibly spent for a first quarter. Now we're getting this loan, which is going to, well, from where I'm sitting, ease those, fears that we have, or allay those fears. We're talking 841.7 million here. It's on paper, and it does sound transformative. In practical terms, what kind of impact does this figure represent for the context of Eswatini's current fiscal position?
Thank you, Mr. Ncumalo. So in terms of the fiscal position, Mr. Ncumalo, it somehow goes to ensure that we're able to fund the budget, as it were, because what we need to be cognizant of is the fact that this is budget support. This money comes in to support the budget. It's not coming in for any specific project that was not included in the budget. So what it means is we do expect government to have a smoother cash flow. We do expect government to execute a number of those programs and the projects that the government of the Kingdom of Eswatini seeks to implement. So we do expect that in the next month or so, these loans, as they keep trickling in, we should see a bit of smoothing in government's cash flow, and we should be able to see those ministries, for example, that were underspent, say at those 12%. You should expect to see those really just catching up, because now the liquidity is there to finance those. And then in terms of whether it is transformative or not, Mr. Ncumalo, one thing that we need to understand as a country is we are facing multiple structural problems. The first one that you mentioned is that one of youth unemployment. So we do need to make sure that we are able to deal with that problem. And what we need to understand is what is causing the unemployment to stay at that level. And once we can start addressing that, then we would be well on our way on transforming the economy. Because what is required right now is to get Eswatini into the 21st century, get our production systems into the 21st century, get our training institutions into the 21st century. Because one of the main problems that we're facing, as you might recall, that skills audit report, is the issue of skills mismatch. So what we expect to happen right now when you're thinking of this type of loan, which is structured in a way to help Eswatini transform its economic landscape. What we are going to be looking for as economists is what is government doing towards those structural problems. We know they've mentioned the construction of those factory shells and quite a number of other initiatives, but that's the very same old thing that we've been doing. What we want right now to see as a country, or what we want to implement as a country, is implement strategies that are going to grow the kingdom, and not just grow the kingdom, but grow the kingdom in a manner that the economy creates the jobs that are needed. That's what we need, not just growth. You need growth that's going to create the jobs, and that's what we need to push for. And another thing that we are somehow trying to weigh and see is the fact that this is a loan, as you might have it. It is going to have to be paid back at some point. And we need the tax revenue. So when we say grow the economy, not just to pay corporate taxes, but grow it to create jobs, to get those income taxes and all of those things. So we do hope that over and beyond the 5,000 jobs that the minister there somehow projects, we should actually see some other structural problems, such as dealing with the education sector, equipping Eswatini to participate in the AI economy, and, the IT skills and all of those other sectors there, to make sure that the private sector really can thrive in the kingdom.
847 million Malangeni is a little 100 and something short of $1 billion. And you think about the money that was spent in the first quarter, it's around 3 point something billion. And, you can see that this is not a lot of money, as a lot of people may perceive millions and millions, but it's not a lot of money, just putting into, reality how much we spent in quarter one. But
the imperative of job creation, I want to quote what the AFDB reported here. Of course, they are the Bank Deputy Director General for Southern Africa, who is Muno Mupotola. He said, our support will help the kingdom build fiscal resilience while creating an enabling environment for private sector-led growth that can generate jobs for young people and women. And then Minister Neil Reichenbach, emphasizing on that imperative, he said, this is going to support the national budget, actually, but it also ought to create jobs as well as the settling of debts, which you have alluded to. I am very interested in the job creation, which you've spoken to, because the projection is 5,000 jobs.
Yeah.
Is that realistic? Is it sustainable?
Realistic.
5,000 jobs.
It's just a small number. Realistic it is, and in my view, given the fact that we have, say, around 200,000 people in the labor force, and if 25% of those are unemployed, so you're talking around 100,000. Yes, 5,000 job is quite realistic, But what you need to do now is you need to think around how much are you going to be chipping off of this unemployment rate if you're creating 5,000 jobs. So if we're saying 25% is unemployed, so it should come up to, say, 50,000. So 50,000 is merely 10% of that 5,000.
Right.
And surely we can do better. That's what we need to understand, that we can do better. But one thing that has not been mentioned here is the fact that when you settle areas to the private sector, for example, you allow liquidity for SMMEs to grow, for those businesses on whom government was obligated to. So you allow that liquidity and you pump it back into the market, and we then see that type of growth coming in as well. But now the question is, Mr. Nxumalo, we went to the World Bank, we got that loan. But when we read the news, I think only 600 million had been used to settle areas when we thought that the entire 2 billion was going to go to that. So now the reason I'm raising that is I want us to come to the imperative understanding that once money goes into budget support, it then has to somehow satisfy the multiple competing resource requirements within the government machinery, such that you might find that when we sit here and we make these normative assumptions and we see the 5,000 jobs being created, but because there are competing fiscal pressures within government, and when the money comes in as budget support, it gets to do quite a number of things, and you don't get to see the multiplier effect that you would have ideally seen had the money been spent, pumped 2 million into areas. You would have just unlocked much 2 billion potential in terms of our private sector, right, in terms of SMMEs. But right now, we are not seeing that full potential. So when we sit and do our numbers, we then have to, over and again, continuously, upgrade and recalibrate the numbers based on what then comes out from the newspapers and from whatever government publishes.
And that's not sustainable at all. But, reading the country's report by the African Development Bank here, one asks themselves how much of the unemployment that we are speaking to, how much of that challenge is structural and how much of it, can this funding fix? Because another thing that is highlighted here is the private sector question. They are saying, and the headline says, parastatal dominance stifles youth unemployment growth. They speak to the SOEs and they flag the parastatal dominance as a brake on private sector growth. Do you agree that SOEs are crowding out the private sector?
I think what we need to understand, the question of SOEs in Eswatini is a funny one, right? Because there's quite a number of institutions that they would be classified as SOEs, but they are not SOEs. They are public good institutions. But because of a lack of legislation within which we can then formulate those, they then tend to be classified as SOEs. But then the broader question becomes, how much government do you need in business? That's the question we should be asking. SOEs, yes. What we need is SOEs that are going to be efficient. And we don't need SOEs that are going to always be, making demands on the fiscal purse. If we have an SOE, it should at least be able to run itself and be competitive and be allowed to compete with others, right? But as far as we know, I think it's only EEC that pays dividends to the government, but quite a number of the SOEs are not breaking even. They're not efficient. So it's a question of efficiency. And yes, it does stifle that growth, because that's money that instead of sending as dividends to an SOE that is supposed to be making money, that's in a market and where we have other people competing in the market and they're breaking even. But for an SOE, they're coming in, then they're not breaking even. So we have to continuously give them money. That is the money that we ought to be putting in different uses. So I think that's where the argument comes from. But we have to be cognizant of what an SOE is. In my view, an SOE is that entity which participates in business, in a business environment, and has the potential to make money. But unfortunately, because we do not have a good regulation around, our public good institutions, we then tend to even classify things like the university as SOEs and quite a number of things, which they're not.
I mean, regardless, as you mentioned, I think and you flag this quite brilliantly, because it also poses the question right in front of our eyes. If amongst all the SOEs that we have, only one is able to break even, and actually, because ideally, and I remember when the Prime Minister assumed office, he did have a forum with SOEs and addressed them and reminded them of their imperative, not necessarily to make large profits, but just to break even, so that money is returned back as it's supposed to be returned back. But I want to highlight this. The financial institution reports that over the 5 years leading up to 2023, government's transfers to SOEs, including subsidies and equity, approximately 3.5% of gross domestic product, compared to returns in the form of dividends and taxes close to 1% of GDP, resulting in a net fiscal drain of 2.5% of GDP. So I want to submit to you that regardless of the fact that there are institutions that shouldn't be, referenced as SOEs, even the ones that we have perhaps are stifling this development.
Yeah, true, they are, because if you have that net deficit, so that means every year the government has to continuously fund these SOEs. And when you talk of an SOE, you're talking of, I had this conversation with a friend once, and the friend almost cried.
Yeah.
I was like, you're going to move a unit from government, make it a parastatal ndondoni for efficiency, and then boom, the next thing, the person gets paid 4 times my salary. But I'm doing the same job here in government. So you see the inefficiencies. You are
100%.
continuously funding and overpaying people elsewhere for functions which they could be doing within government.
Right.
So another way you could do that is, how do you do what we call pseudo-privatization? How do you get the public sector to act as though they are private. Just be goal-driven and be oriented that way. So there are other ways, instead of just setting up a completely separate SOE and then you balloon the costs, which you're saying you're trying to contain.
Absolutely, and I suppose that pseudo-privatization could be something that we really want to look at, especially, looking at our trying economic times right now. It could really remedy a lot of the situation that we are currently living under. But how do you interpret the government's move to reallocate textile jobs, empower MSMEs through micro revolving funds, as well as expand ENIDC's credit support? Is this enough to stimulate private-led economy?
So what we need to understand is, across the globe, the SMEs are actually the drivers. Even if you go to the US, they have those big Fortune 500
100%.
companies. But the heartbeat of that economy is the men on the streets. There's micro, small, medium enterprises. They do quite a lot. So we do need those, and we do need to also, find ways, more especially within the textile sector. What you need to do is find ways to localize and make the production processes relatively, relatively cheaper for a Maswati. So that's a given. But what you need to be cognizant of as well, Mr. Nxumalo, is in these trying levels of poverty, the only thing that Maswati are worried about is getting food in there. in their mouths before they can think of something else. So we need that type of broad-based approach to say, in as much as we want to deal with unemployment, how do we make sure that we get our people to think beyond the now?
Right.
And then be able to take advantage of these, investments and being able to grow the investments, because we don't want a situation where you have a person, they have a business, you funded them. Then the next minute, somebody comes, offers them 4,000 a month, they leave that business. They're not seeing that growth potential, because what they are immediately worried about is the basic sustenance and the basic survival in the now.
So what incentives do we need to sort of provide for these MSMEs to sort of, see the future and focus it as conducive and lucrative?
So what we have to do, Mr. Nxumalo, is I would say a bit of BEE.
Okay.
Because once the person has that tender which they are looking forward to, let's say, for example, government would say, for supplies, I'm going to make sure that it's SMEs. And if that person knows that I'm supplying a tender that's worth like $1 million, and then I'm going to probably net make 200, you see that person is incentivized to stay in business. So you could use government as an impetus to make sure that, the SME grows, and they could have that quota for SME procurement that every year. And they should make sure that they get paid on time, right? You just don't want to have a quota and then them getting paid on time and you're still killing them. So that would be one of those things, while at the same time you are growing private sector to be efficient, so that when government takes a step back, then these entities that would have grown would then still find space to survive and supply within private sector. But in the interim, while we are helping them build a portfolio and build that bank balance that would allow them to compete for bigger tenders, government can come in and play there. That's why I said it becomes a question of how much government do you need in business. So I think we need a structured plan to say we're going to have government do this for the next 2 or 3 years, and then after which we expect private sector to be at this level.
Interesting indeed. And I'm just thinking about the skills from the MSMEs and actually being able to, to undertake those tenders and those jobs efficiently and proficiently. I think that also becomes important. It's a give and take.
It's a give and take, and it's always a conversation I've had with people. And the one question I've always asked was, if the people's own government cannot trust them, whom else do you expect to trust and come and cultivate this skill that you need? Because for every Fortune 500 company that you see out there, they didn't just get to this level. They had support. So it's either you structure the support, make sure access to finance and all these other things are relatively easy to come by, and access to technologies are relatively easy to come by, and then you can make those demands. But until and unless you've dealt with that supply side, it's a demand you cannot make, and you will never find a local company then that is going to be able to participate at that level. We're always going to be exporting the jobs and exporting the tenders and exporting everything. But we've got to build that capacity, and government money is the best way to do that. You will lose a few here and there, but it's money that's paid for through taxpayers. It's not like it's my investment alone. So we say, government is what we call risk neutral, because it's money that we collect from everyone. So we spread the risk across everyone.
Yes.
So I think we can afford to do that.
Interesting indeed how much of the competitiveness of these MSMEs is reliant on the capacity that is created by government, and therefore the ripple effect then becomes just beautiful. All we need is the structural support in creating that capacity. Let's look at the bigger picture. Eswatini's GDP growth outlook being revised to 1.7%. What does that tell us about the year that is ahead as well, even with this loan on the table?
Yeah, that's the tricky one. That's the one I've always said I'm worried about, if you remember when we started this entire thing of the loans and whatnot. And I asked one question, that how then do we sustain it going forward? Because right now, this government expenditure is what is driving the GDP growth numbers that we are going to see. We're going to see that 5% that we're going to see. But come next year, we're seeing those downward revisions back to those 3.9%, 4% levels type of things, downward revisions of that 1.7%. So that becomes the problem for me, Mr. Nxumalo, say, if already, and I know that my numbers caused a huge stir in this country, but we are a largely and excessively committed country, which, if my numbers tell me, that means next year we don't have scope to borrow, not unless we are forgetting about the limits that we are going to have. That is why we are seeing those downward revisions, because we've overcommitted in this current period, and then we're not going to have the ability to borrow next year. So until and unless we start seeing those jobs coming into effect, that private sector growth and all of those things, then that's when probably the numbers are going to change upwards. But right now, the numbers are based on the fact that the analysts at the AFDB, the World Bank, the IMF, when they look at it, they be like, no, but Eswatini, one way or the other, whether you take Spears numbers or not, you are above 40% of your GDP in terms of your debt to GDP ratio. So that means ideally, those institutions are not going to want to borrow us money next year. We become a bit risky.
That's going to be bad, yeah.
So that's why we're seeing those, and that's why I'm saying it's imperative that this budget be executed according to plan, as per plan, so that probably come September, October-ish, December, we are seeing the change on the ground, and then probably those numbers would get another upward revision as well.
But much of everything that we are saying now as we cap off our conversation is that much of it relies on the policy reforms that ought to be made. And I suppose a big part of it is obviously the capacity and the structural support for MSMEs. As you mentioned, they are the lifeblood of the economy. But I think another urgent imperative that is not perhaps given the much attention that it requires is the reform around what is identified as an SOE and what isn't.
Yeah. No, that's critical, because once we identify what's an SOE and what isn't, then we can actually hold SOEs to account and say, but you are supposed to make money. But right now, until and unless we have that legislation that allows for the establishment of certain entities as public good institutions, separate from SOEs, then we're always going to be in these muddy waters where we don't know what is what. So that one is quite critical. And execution of the budget to create the jobs and transform the economy. You know, the way what the minister is saying, and that is what we need, and we need to end 2025 already realizing some of these benefits. So that's what we need as a country to move forward, because right now our projections are being downgraded because of this debt outlook. But another thing that we need to do as well is which is something that we're already seeing happening, but we need to ramp up on those. What the country needs is injections, but injections not coming through from government. We need to get foreign investors to come in and invest serious money in this country. So we need to ramp up our drive for foreign direct investment, utilizing those export processing zones, those special economic zones. We have quite a number of initiatives in place that we just need to sell to the world and get that private international capital to come into the country and produce in the country and help us create more jobs to be sustainable. Otherwise, in the absence of that, next year really is going to be as predicted.
Next year, being as predicted is not something that I want to see. And certainly, I do want to ask you, as a parting question, how do you measure, the success of this loan next year in just maybe 2 or 3 sentences? Because, again, referencing Eswatini's Q1 budget execution, it showed over 3.6 billion that's already been spent. We could be overshooting, and that could threaten our budget stability. How do we measure the success going forward? As analysts, as citizens, success, failure, our financing package?
Number one, what we need to understand is we need that by Q1, everyone ought to be at 25%. The fact that we're not at 25%.
So Q2 is a big
we should
testing.
At 50%. Now, what that shows is your ability to mobilize the resources which you had budgeted for, and it communicates to business that what I promised I am going to deliver. But right now, this under expenditure.
Is it forgivable from an economic point of view to, let's say, we overshoot again in the second quarter, but as we overshoot, the health crisis, we see it being remedied, the obviously public works and transport, it is also remedied. Because I think the biggest concern is as we overshoot, not much of what we want to fix seems to be fixed.
Seems to be fixed, exactly.
Senator Sbi, our economist, thank you so much for joining us on the program. He has been chiming into the AFDB loan, which promises over 5,000 jobs, and he does say that is realistic and somewhat sustainable going forward. We will wrap up the show shortly with Masomboga. Stay with us.
Welcome to Eswatini Lifestyle. This is your ultimate guide to the entertainment, to the lifestyle and the culture of Eswatini.
Eswatini Lifestyle. Eswatini Lifestyle. Eswatini Lifestyle. From 6:30 to 7 p.m. On Eswatini TV, Sibuko Semaswati.
On Eswatini TV, Sibuko Semaswati.
Right, that's how we hit the home stretch of the Tuesday edition of Kusile Breakfast Show, and it's been a pleasure for staying with us, myself and Sifiso Nxumalo.
As well as our interviewees, they did an incredible job, and we hope that you learned quite a lot from myself, Sifiso Nxumalo, and Sifiso Nxumalo the second. Thank you so much for staying with us on Kusile Breakfast Show. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.